Before we get started, a quick word about our sponsors, Philip Lee LLP. Philip Lee has evolved from a specialist regulatory practice to become a leading commercial law firm. Their partners are sector specialists, leading talented teams of lawyers in a collaborative, nurturing environment. Philip Lee's solutions help clients build better businesses, a better society, and a better planet. Find out more at philiplee.ie. Philip Lee, leading the way in commercial law. Today's guest is one of Ireland's most influential food and beverage entrepreneurs. David McKernan began his career at Bewley's before taking a huge leap. He remortgaged his home, cashed in his shares, travelled the world studying coffee culture, and set out to create a better coffee experience by launching what became one of Ireland's most respected coffee brands, Java Republic. Over 2 decades, he challenged a stagnant market, championed transparency and ethical sourcing, and built a brand that reshaped Irish coffee culture. In 2019, he sold Java Republic to Spanish group Cafento, and today he's co-founder of BioVest, investing in and scaling the next generation of high-potential Irish food businesses. He's a founder, a builder, an investor, and someone who has lived the highs and lows of creating something from absolutely nothing. Dave McKernan, you're very welcome to Business Plus Talks, which we're actually partnering with Philip Lee on, whom I believe you know.
I do. Not only do I know Philip, I know Jonathan. And I think 25 years ago, I beat Philip in a lovely game of table tennis in Addis Ababa, which he will never forget.
What was the moment you wanted to do your own thing? Because you went all in.
Yeah, I give the credit to my dad, John McKernan, who worked for a Guinness company. He was always at me to go out on my own. A lot of people asked me I did 12-year stint in Bewley's, and I had an amazing time. I mean, Paddy Bewley was my MD, Tom Brennan, Paddy Campbell was the owner. They couldn't have treated me any better, but I felt for the last couple of years I wanted to go out on my own, and I got a few offers, didn't do anything. And then one day, my older brother, Robert, who worked for Mars, he was calling it a day. He was going out on his own, he was changing career. None of us had gone out on our own at this stage. We were walking up the mountains, just the two of us. It wasn't a walk, it was a race. And he said to me, you should go out on your own. And the following morning, I remember making a phone call to a guy called David Shannon, who I hoped he would go out as well. He was in Ballygowan. He didn't. He decided not to go out because it was really risky. And from that morning, the next morning on, I had put a plan together to go out and set up a coffee company. I didn't know what.
So you always liked coffee or an interest in it?
I didn't. I hit coffee. I came straight out of school in 1987. I should have gone to college. I always kind of regret that. People laugh and say they don't. But no, I don't. I'm not now. I'm not sure. But no, I want my kids to go to college. But I never liked coffee. I didn't drink coffee. It was. I think we used to say it was West Brit coffee culture.
I hate to offer you coffee now.
No, I've got fussier and fussier over the years. But I'm drinking lovely specialty tea. So it was that day with my brother. But my dad was a great encourager, and other people. Those other guys who said to me, "Set up coffee shops," because I got retail and I got coffee. So it was a couple of years, but the reason it took so long because it was 29. It's late to go out on your own at 29. I was well looked after. Like it was
That's pretty young.
No, when I look back, when you see what people are doing now, particularly in tech, it just seems to be much easier. So there was it didn't happen overnight, but when I decided to go, I went, and then I miscalculated the big cost of setting up.
So you left Bewley's in 1998, and then you went and set up Java Republic in 99.
Yeah, it took a year.
Did you go over to San Fran to skate around?
Yeah, I was with another great pal from school. I went to school with a guy called Donald Fennell, and we were going up to see Macker up in San Francisco, and I saw Cafe Roma, and I had never seen a live roastery with a cafe and customers in it, and it was an Italian family or third generation Italian. They weren't that pleasant to me at the time. I think it's gone now because I think they handed it down to the next generation and it just didn't work out. And I always remember saying to Don, I'm going to have one of those. And I thought San Francisco, I'd never been to San Francisco, the coffee culture. Pete's actually had a huge influence. And Pete's is kind of third behind Starbucks traditionally.
What's it, Pete's?
Pete's Coffee. It's
okay.
PE. It was set up by a Dutchman, but very strong ethics about coffee and very strong ethics about origin. And I was really blown away by the coffee over there. I think it was 20, I might have been 24, 23, 24. So the influence of the States, particularly San Francisco, had a huge influence on me. Then I could see what you could do with coffee, which was more than just wholesale. And we didn't have the chains at that stage in Ireland. London was kicking off, and The rest then is...
And what were you, David, setting out to do with coffee? Make it just completely different, the experience?
Well, I didn't realize...
Sourcing?
Dave, I didn't realize exactly what I was going to do, but it took a year. So I jumped out in September 98. I unfortunately financed it wrong. I had shares which they were gifted to me by Paddy Campbell. I sold those, and that was probably a trigger for the internal guys to say, why would he sell out at this stage? Because they were probably valuable at the time. But it took a year to set up Jab Republic, which was a disaster because I had a mortgage at a super house in Selbridge, right in the village, but I couldn't pay the mortgage, and I miscalculated. In my head, I needed 300,000. I actually needed $1 million to set it up.
Okay.
And then Enterprise Ireland got me a really good guy, Dick Blake. I remember this is 25 years ago. And Dick worked it out in Terranure in his house. He said, Dave, you need a lot more. So it was the equipment was the big issue and leasing. And then I needed shareholders, which I didn't realize either. And then I brought shareholders into the business and we kicked off. It took a full year in September of 99. And I didn't realize until I dug into the ethics of coffee, because really they didn't know how bad it was. It still is bad, but it's just the coffee prices have been driven up in the last 2 years. Speculation and hedge funds. So the farmers are probably getting a much better price now. But back then, and maybe it'll switch back to lower prices again. Like it's a really tough market for coffee farmers because they've no choice. That's where I was out in Ethiopia with Philip, maybe 25 years ago, Brodie Sweeney. And there was no one, I told you earlier, there was no one 48 years of age. It's horrific, particularly African.
Sorry, Dave, can I just go back to, you said you gauged it wrong from the get-go. So 300 grand you had, whereas you needed 3 times that.
3 times.
How did you rectify that? Or how does it...
So I wasn't great at maths, which was good as well, because then I wouldn't have done the next iteration of Jab Republic, which happened in the bigger one. But I when I'd left, I'd made up my mind. And the one thing about me, and I didn't realize this at the time, when I go at something, I'm tough and I just don't, I'm resilient and I will not hold back. But to be honest with you, Enterprise Ireland were brilliant. That Dick Blake guy was great. And then I met a guy called Michael Cronin. And Mike now runs the business. Michael is retired out of the business. And he put it was BES funding together. So Michael trusted me, knew my dad, met me, liked the story, liked the fact that he could drink the coffee maybe, and loved the brand. And he put in, a load of publicans backed it, some individuals who weren't publicans, medical people, all sorts of people. So we did a BES system. I think I raised 300, or Michael did for me, 300,000. I signed my house over to Bank of Ireland. The man who lent me the money, because AIB turned me down. I'll never forget leaving Sandyford crying. Actually, I was really upset, but it was a practice run for Bank of Ireland, and they lent me leasing, and they gave me an overdraft and a credit card. So it all came together. It sounds easy. It was hell. You're waking up at 5 with fear.
As you do, yeah.
But one thing about me, if I caused the problem, I jumped out without a plan. I had a plan, the big picture stuff. But when you look at the detail, and the problem was I had to set up roasting, factory, lease. I signed a shocking lease at the time, 25-year upward only. And then I had to buy in people. So I took on 9 people from day one, which was risky. But I knew the opposition, which was Bewley's or Roberts or whoever was going to take some of them out and poach them. So I went in big. I mean, I believed, and I bought the biggest roaster, probably still the biggest roaster's ever been bought in Ireland.
When did it get easier then?
Maybe the year 2, when I remember going to see Michael over in Terranure, or he came to us in Kylemore Road. This was the small roastery. And he said to me, you did better than break even. Maybe that day.
What year was that now?
That was probably 2000. And
it
never got, to be honest with you, David, it never got easier. Like there was one day I ran out of petrol, or 1 week I ran out of fuel twice in the same week, which meant that I was just running so hard every Saturday and Sunday. Was getting samples into
running on fumes.
It's just, and I was putting Clodagh through as well. I was married then at that stage. Hugh Regan told me, this is such a hard journey. Hugh was the Thomas Reid Group. He was supposed to back me. He pulled out. He said, this is such a hard journey. You better get married. I didn't even realize how hard. If I'd known how hard the journey was, I would have done it. I was so thick. I'm stubborn. I wanted to do my own thing. All these people encouraged me. How many times do you get your family to encourage you to go out? But my brother lost confidence at one stage. He said to me, this is taking too long. Is this going to work? I remember him saying that to me. And then he was very honest. This is Robert. And I'm saying to myself, and then my younger brother lent me some money. There were stressful times setting it up, running it. But you know what? I lived for it. I loved probably loved it being on the edge, but I didn't realize it was all
too much to do.
No, I slept great because I played a lot of indoor football, and I used to run, and I would go into Sportsmed. I was in Sportsmed this morning. That's the gym I've done for 20 years. I tried to keep fit, which if you didn't, that makes you sleep.
I know, it's good mental health sort of aspect. I want to jump onto the conversation to change everything, but in advance as well, David, like the coffee, I suppose, culture and industry is quite saturated, right? So what were you gonna do differently?
What I wanted to do was, no one talked about where the coffee came from, really. You could say Colombian, or maybe McDonald's would have been at the higher level because they did huge volumes. And I wanted to expose the coffee, the quality of it. I wanted to expose the ethics of it. I exposed what we paid per pound. And that was very difficult when you're an accountant.
You looked to create a rebellion, were you?
Yeah, I was very. I was difficult. I would have shown up the transparency, the brand, and all of the documentation. Anything we'd had to do with the brand was all about transparency, and it drove the competitors off the wall because we were the first. I'd say
they try and block you.
Yeah, they did some really, really hard tactical things. Yeah, no, they did one tactical thing which was great, and a publican in Dublin.
That probably just fueled you, though, didn't it?
It worried me. One day they gave a guy 9 cases of coffee and filters and teas and all. Like, it was 6 months worth of product. And Tom Gilligan still owns, or his son runs the pub now, the Duke in Duke Street.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote to 400 customers of a certain coffee company. Let's not mention them because I actually love them now and we're all pals. And I sent it to all their customers. And my legal guy said, you don't do this. But I was up 24 hours. And I fought like a dog. If you took me on, God help, I just wouldn't stop because I had no choice. But that gave me 2 years breathing space. Yeah. So it was competitive. But don't forget, I worked for them. And then why would I let a guy come in and then I turned on them? But it wasn't the market. What was happening was the younger generation, which were females or younger girls, were getting into lattes. And then they started putting syrups in them. Because coffee it's like your first pint of Guinness. I remember feeling ill after the first few days, because I couldn't take the caffeine and I couldn't take the taste of coffee. But once that whole generation of the younger crew, and then the market was doubling every year, it was just incredible, the growth. And this was 99 to maybe 2003, 4 before everybody piled in. A Frappuccino is a shocking product, actually, in terms of calories. But it is a brilliant marketing concept, and it's a great drink. Like it's a dessert.
So Java Republic Day was about ethical and sustainable as well.
Yeah, and I was good at the marketing. And I wasn't trained on it, but I was very good at it. And we were very good. The likes of Nick in Business Plus, I hounded people. The Irish Times gave us an article. We were very good on PR. And I was trying to advise some people recently about how I was in Cork Bic 2 weeks ago, and they were asking me, how do we build a brand? We were extraordinarily good at persuading journalists to give me a break.
Yeah. And
that publicity, it's the same now, except the digital media is where it's all about. And we didn't really do videos. We weren't good at that. I wasn't naturally good at that, but I was good at talking to journalists. We were in the papers pretty much every couple of weeks, or we did a lot of radio because we said some things and we brought products out, like Kopi Luwak, some strange coffees.
You strike me as a man who books a trend, to be fair. So
no, I did. I was good at it, but it's tiring and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep on the edge and then run the business. And then we got up to, you had more people joining the company. We got big. We got up to number 2 in Ireland. Bewley's dominate. It's definitely changed now, but it was growing. And in my head, the way I worked on it was every year I wanted to add $1 million to the turnover.
Right.
But coffee margins are very strong. They were extraordinarily
massive,
strong. They were massive back then. They're not the same anymore because it's too competitive. And coffee prices up maybe 300%.
What could you grow like year on year exponentially? Like,
if I actually had the access to the books I have now, and I was telling this traction and this 80-20 rules, that there's another one, 2x is 2x harder than 10x. Yeah. If I knew those tricks now, and they're not tricks, they're scientific way to grow. Like, we grew because I took on more salespeople. We instantly had a distribution.
Like sales is the backbone, isn't it?
Sales is the backbone in Dublin, where the market was. But we were very clever. We followed the Bewley's model, which was take a distributor on in the regions. And then we tried to get into the UK, but we were too early. We could have been bust at that stage. I was too aggressive at the beginning, and to work with these people, train them. It's a technical business because there's equipment involved, and then that gets leased. So we got great bank support. I mean, Bank of Ireland were extraordinary. They still bank Czech Republic. They were incredibly good at once it start making money, and then it made a couple of $100,000
Every
every
bank is
year.
like that, though, right?
No, banks are. It's tough to get money at the moment, but
Yeah.
it was an aggressive plan with a lot of people to grow it. But I had a figure in my head. I added €1 million. It was a simple figure. It should have been an EBITDA figure. It should have been a net profit, but I didn't. I just thought turnover was more important at the time to stay alive. First was to stay alive, and then I don't remember it getting easier because it was just that was my. I just either I took a holiday and then we found some really good people who joined the business. Grace was the first MD and a finance guy. And once you had people in the company,
I was
then
going
you
to
got
say
breaks.
great people are what turns it all around, really, isn't it? And creating a culture that works.
Yeah, but if you don't get a break, if you didn't get a week's holidays, which you got no phone calls. And the first guy I think was Sean Francis we had in, and Sean, I worked with Sean in the past, and you have to have anybody setting up a business. Not at the beginning because it's too pre-profit is very difficult, but after that you have to have a number two. If you don't have a number two, you just don't get any break. 7 days a week. Like I've looked back at some of the photographs. Particularly there's one in the Irish Times, and it's absolutely horrific. And I remember seeing it on a bank holiday weekend. It was a great article done by John McKernan. I don't know if John is still around, but he doesn't do Irish Times. And I probably looked 20 years older and exhausted. But that was the drive.
I think we'd all love to know when it sort of turned on its head into a real positive, where it was either a step change, David, it was someone who you met, it was a conversation that you had, or how the mindset shifted for you into we're gonna kill this now. This is going.
Well, I give some credit. I have to say, when I met him 2 weeks ago, John Ailes was the first chairman. We had an unbelievable start because we didn't have the accounts ready, and we had a meeting in a golf club because we couldn't afford an office. And he took my head off. He said, "Dave, there's no sage figures." Sean took his head off, and he said, "This is just a meeting. This is just a chat. This is not." So John brought discipline. And the first thing I realized is I'm poor at the discipline and the numbers. Sean was brilliant at the numbers and everything else. But once we had the management accounts every month, because you don't get them, you get them after the effect. We had that discipline. Then we had Jim Coffey was brilliant at the time for those couple of years of growth. Then I had David Dilger, who was great for the year and a half. Then I had the big change was Stephen.
What year was it, David?
This came in. I think I had a mentor from and I had loads of mentors. Michael Cronin was extraordinary, and people in the banks, different guys. But when I decided, I was very naive, Dave. I didn't want to sell the company, so I thought I'd build it. I have all the equity.
Is that a protective thing? No,
I just was. I'll be honest with you, I was naive. I thought I was so passionate. I was going to build it. And I never, because we didn't have children at this stage, or did we? Maybe no, we didn't really have anybody. I didn't want to see it handed on. I just didn't get the sense that I'd sell it. And then that dawned on me. And when Steve came in, he just brought a level of focus I'd never seen and discipline. And I was the problem. And most times, every year, if it didn't grow, I knew I was the problem. I was doing something wrong and I had to get out of my own way. It's the same with every company.
So you have a plug and play team that you can bring in to just address the potential weaknesses.
Yeah, but the biggest weakness was always me. I got distracted. My nickname was the Magpie, so I'd buy this, or I'd look at this, or I would go into the UK or try and partner with somebody. I never turned down an opportunity, and that's good, but it's also bad. I mean, it's nothing ever got turned down. If there was someone rang us, we want to do a partnership, we want to buy your product, whatever. Didn't matter what it was, I'd listen. The downside is you get distracted. And you
did you plan. Though, because you don't strike me as just let go of the ego and learn, because you have to optimize continuously, listen to others and understand, because the market, I think, David, dictates where you go. You don't.
Yeah, well, that's also, somebody told me when we were selling that the market dictates the price, and I said that's bullshit. It's not going to dictate the price I'm going to get a certain price, and we got the price. So the market does dictate it, but it's how you are tactically, strategically in the market. I was very poor at that part of it. I just didn't. I knew we were growing, we were very good at it, but when you come to when your numbers don't come through every quarter, and then at the year end it didn't grow, I remember David Dilger said to me, I was very soft on the numbers and hard on the people, which was a great way of saying it. It was probably and he said it to me at an airport one day, Dublin airport. He was going back to France, I think. And I remember saying, I had to digest that. But I also met lots of other people in between that gave me so much guidance and mentoring. And that's the thing about Ireland. And I don't know, and I've just come back from Italy, but and I look at businesses in Italy, and we've seen some businesses in Germany, Irish people help. Irish entrepreneurs are very, very helpful. Now, it also it's a pull on their time because it's all about time. But I do, the ego goes, by the way, the ego gets absolutely crucified the first few years. So anybody with an ego after a few years, good luck to them, because it's...
Are you okay with being wrong?
Yeah, I've always been wrong. And not only me being wrong, if the team were wrong, I didn't care as long as we made a decision and go for it. And I was really good at putting my hands up, because when I got into trouble in 2008, I put my hands up. I said, look, to the bank. And this is where I think people made mistakes. And the banks weren't always right. But I always said, look, I borrowed that money. I borrowed 7 or 8 million to build a new factory, a new roastery. I was very good at saying, my fault, put our hands up and take it. But let's get through it. So I got good at that.
But you must have then understood, David, the commercial engine at one point to be able to go, okay, now's the time. We're ready.
Yeah, near the end. So, and I said this in Cork recently at the Cork BIC, or the Access BIC. I said, I don't know what I did for the first 16 years, but I'll tell you what I did for the last 4 years was focus on getting the EBITDA up, the team right, the culture really good, and the passion commercialized. And if I got all that right, I thought we would we were heading towards 4.5 million EBITDA. And then we knew we'd get, the market was saying we'd get 8. I believed we'd get 10. Then I believed we'd get 12. I think we'll get it up over 12. We got to 13 maybe. I got really focused. And then I also got worried, because when you hit 50, it's a big change. I mean, it's not in one sense, but it did. But I also saw what was happening. The baristas were starting to get bored. So they started opening roasteries. Right. It was very easy to set up a roastery for nothing. I mean, nothing. For the roaster, prices went down, because that was a massive barrier at the beginning. Equipment suppliers would only deal with current roasters. That all broke down. And then I saw this is going to get really competitive. And now there are 280 roasters, coffee distributors in Ireland, and we have a small market. So it got really competitive. I knew that was coming down the road. So I didn't really have a choice. When I decided to sell, Steve was there for that term of, I think Steve did 5 years with us. And then he handled the whole exit with Grace and Jeff, which was a really difficult exit. I mean, I didn't realize this either. Exiting is really hard. We got a great result, but it's a hard process. And particularly when you're like me, you step out. The reason I stepped out was...
Just hand the reins over to somebody else.
Well, I didn't hand the reins. I would have been a liability. If you had chipped me, which is,
okay,
I'm going to give you less, I promise you yesterday I'd give you less, I'd come over to the table and I'd take your head off. I'm trying not to use any bad language. No, they did, but it had an impact. It was hard on them. It was really hard. And we can have all the advice you want, but when you try and sell a business...
But were you hard on them in the background?
No, Steve said I was relentless on the price. Always says it to me. We're very close. We're still going. We still go out.
You had something in mind, and you're sticking to it.
I had it. No, I had it, and then I moved the goal. I moved the goal 3 times. I remember the first email was a pathetic email looking for 20 million, and then we said no, we'll get more, and then we get more, and then this guy in London told me, actually, they're big in food. He said you're too small, or you'll never get that money, and that bugged the shit out of me. I left London. I wanted to kill him, and I said this is not going to happen, and. Steve, I always remember Steve saying I was relentless. Never did I flinch. And then at one stage I nearly walked away. At the end day, I walked away over 50 grand. I got so thick over the whole process. So I'm the last. But you have to realize, fellas like me are great building the business and getting everything. But then you have to get them out of the way. And if you just need structure and you need discipline. And there's where the guys were they had the opposite skills. And Jeff, a data room of 4,000 documents, never one single question. And then we had 3 or 4 players in the market, and then 2 fell out, and we had 2 in the end. And Cafento wanted it. They have an amazing business. I still love the business, still love the brand.
You're involved in it, so?
No, I had lunch with them recently. Who gets to see a business after 5.5 years and gets brought out for lunch? But I am. It's in my bones.
But they obviously aligned with your values, and you're happy with.
They have been brilliant, because COVID came in 7 months later, and if I hadn't got out, we would never have got the price. Never, ever, ever had got the price, because no one knew what a COVID would do to an industry. And overnight we lost Aer Lingus, hotels, offices. We lost 90% of our business. I'm watching this from the outside. I had all my money made, and because there was no earnout. That was another difficult thing. I didn't do an earnout. I wouldn't do an earnout. I just said I want all my money up front.
Straight up?
Yeah, I left them.
That's something relatively unheard of, isn't it?
Yeah, no, the good guys get away with it. The tech guys, the people who have great assets. No, I knew I was difficult. If they did something that I wasn't going to like, I just couldn't. I never sit there and shut up. But they did the opposite. They paid the guy, because the team were on an earnout as well. they fulfilled everything. They did everything to this day. And their culture is right. Different culture to us because they're Spanish. It's a massively different culture.
Yeah.
But they get coffee. And
they do good coffee.
Yeah, and their grandfather set it up in Spain, came back from, I think, from somewhere in South America. It's great. They have a great story. And unfortunately, Carlos Manuel, the man who bought it, he died 6 months later of a heart attack, which was devastating for the culture, for the vision of where they wanted to see the brand work.
What I'd love to know, I'm sure the listeners would too, what's the biggest mistake founders make when you're trying to scale?
Oh God, yesterday I lashed I won't say the company because they're great guys, but I said to them, lads, you don't even have 10% market share and you're trying to look into the UK. This was always, and I did the same thing. I always went to the UK.
Sorry, we can get on to Biovest as well, because you're mentoring and you're challenging entrepreneurs as well, aren't you? In that space.
From the big picture stuff, I go on these EY, Ernst & Young retreats, and I stayed away for a long time. I do not know why I didn't. But I'm telling you, they're the best trips I've ever done in my life. And I've only done 3. And I'm going to Toronto. And so you see the big guys.
Why are they so good?
They're so good because you're with entrepreneurs and you're with the partners or the main people in EY. And they're very helpful. And I think they're a super company. But the quality of learning is extraordinary. And the quality of the entrepreneurs and the quality and the uplift in female entrepreneurs, I've never seen such a change. And then you go down to Cork Bic, which is Access, and I did a mentor with the Sibley, which are protein balls. And I spent a day and a half with these guys. And then yesterday I was in Borbia doing, 3 of us were on a panel, really good guys I worked with yesterday, 3 of us, on looking at 6 companies, trying to mentor them about how to fund their businesses and how to raise money. And it's really hard to raise money at the moment. I mean, there's an edgy thing going on out there about maybe a slowdown or whatever else, but food is notoriously difficult.
Well, yeah, retail is tough.
So
business.
I do a lot, and I get so much. I never realized I get so much out of listening to people about their businesses. But the mistakes, UK focus. The mistakes is don't have the management accounts. The mistake is selling it too cheap, not watching the gross margin. The net is absolutely essential, and then maybe co-manufacturing in food, which I would have been absolutely anti. And I remember the guys from Baru Vodka came in to me and said, Dave, you're a great marketeer. You're wasting all this time roasting. But I said, that's what I want to do.
But isn't collaboration or partnerships key to a business?
It is when you're small. It's not when you're bigger. It's no one wants to collaborate when you're bigger. But when you're small, I'm not sure. I've seen all the collaborations. I've seen, it's a great marketing trick, but I'm not sure whether it's great for the bottom line and sales. And it is eventually.
But it gets you out of the blocks well anyway.
Yeah, but you've got to really have a good marketing strategy. And you've got to understand the new marketing rules, which is really difficult. And you've got to spend. And people don't spend on marketing. Or they're not back. They just don't get marketing. And they don't understand it. But there's people making mistakes. But yesterday I saw 6 fantastic homes. I was surprised at how amazing they were. And then Cork, which is Cork Bic, I think, Access, they were super.
Sorry, you mentioned about a good mix of female entrepreneurs too. Is there a decent gender balance now with the up and coming businesses?
Not. I'd say it's probably, and I don't know the data, but I'd say it's 60-40. I hope it is. But when you get and I'm not knocking us lads, but when you get a female entrepreneur, I just feel that and I was always big. My first CEO was Lorraine Sweeney, so I saw a lady in action, so good, so brilliant with people. And then I remember working with Grace in Java Republic. There's just something different about. There's just more. They're aware of people. They're better with teams, but they're also not doing this hockey stick thing, which we men do. And I think it's ego. Maybe it's ego. I don't know, but. The company's going to grow by 3,000%, where they just seem to understand the challenges and they seem to work better as a team. They're calmer and they look after people better. And
their EQ is higher. Their operation.
Yeah, the EQ is sometimes it's not. Sometimes they eat your life, right? But they're yesterday was over 50-50. EY is fantastic because they're very clever. They're just the people I've seen recently in the last 3 months, some of the best entrepreneurs I've ever seen. So they're learning, but they're getting great support. In EY, you get great. If you get into that program, it's second to none. If you go into Board Bia from the Food Networks program yesterday, fantastic. The Cork Bic, or Access Bic, it's now called. The support they got over 2 days down in Ballymaloo it's as good as I've ever seen. So they're getting more support. Still a hard journey, but they're getting advice and support and mentoring, which is essential.
Any habits, you mentioned you were actually at the gym this morning before you popped on here, that you credit for success that kind of removes you from the business to allow you to come back in with a fresh head?
Travel. The best ideas that ever came about, ever, was up in a plane with a few glasses of wine or one glass of wine and just kick off. My creativity is there. I always write with a pen. I've tried Remarkable. I've tried everything else, but I still write.
Paper and pen, yeah.
I write my notes. I scribble things, and the more I scribble, the more I get ideas out of it. But reading is some of the books.
Like, do you have a routine, David, like day to day?
No, was I disciplined? I tell you, the discipline is never go to bed without a plan for tomorrow. So I'm not, I get up early, but I would read the news, particularly the news, and then I would never, but I'd always have my plan for the next day. And was I a good delegator? I was such a good delegator, I never checked on the results. So it turned out to be a shite delegator, right? This was, again, listening to 360 feedback. I did IMD. Actually, IMD was into Enterprise Ireland. It was a program for 6 weeks. That was, Dave, the biggest game changer. And I think back, because this is not rehearsed, but that was the biggest game changer when I came back from IMD in Switzerland. And with cohorts of 36, 38. I also found out that I'm a massive risk taker, which was embarrassing. And that was scary.
You can tell.
But what IMD did for me, for the passion to understand commercial teams, the right people or the wrong people on the bus, was all these adjectives they used to make us really focus on whether, and then you bounce it off the people in your cohort group. Second to none. Again, EI, now we had to pay some money towards it, but I mean, if I hadn't done that.
Did you ever read books to allow you digest where you might take the next step in amongst your own plan when you're up in the air having a few glasses of wine? Or any quotes or anything that you would look to as a...
Dan Sullivan was a Canadian guy, and it's a way of working. So you work 2 days off, 2 days on, and admin one certain day, and then work with the team. He was pretty good. That was a brilliant program. I didn't sign up. I did a lot of development courses, and I did a lot of courses. I went on a lot of courses, which they all helped. But there was none of the books that are out there at the moment. There's a book called, it's Gino Wickman, Track at the moment.
Okay.
And it's an entrepreneurial, you need somebody to implement it in the company. And I don't know, I can't see there's anybody implements it in Ireland. But I've given this book out or told everybody to buy it. Nearly everybody I've told to buy this book has implemented it in their business. And if I had implemented that business, it's just a measurement. It's measurement. But it's also you have this dashboard. And there's no hiding behind it. And it's discipline. You need discipline to do it. And I also did the Vern Harnish one, which was scaling. So I did a lot of courses and I had access. I'm in a thing called YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization. And then when you get from YPO to 50, you go into gold. And they had access to London Business School. And I did a couple of programs over there. And I had a plan to go to Harvard just on strategy, but COVID came in and killed that. And so I loved that side of the learning side, but I was running so hard at the beginning, but there was no real entrepreneurial books or programs other than Dan Sullivan. And Dan Sullivan has now come out with this other guy. I can't remember his name. He's a doctor. And he's created this 80-20 principle. And the big one is 10x is better than 2x. Every entrepreneur needs to read that. Not the big, and we've some amazing PLCs and CEOs, but there's so many small businesses in ours, hundreds of thousands of them, that need to get that discipline to run a company with a dashboard. And it's measurement. And there's no hiding, and there's no personality, there's no problems. You're always going to have HR issues, in Ireland. It's getting worse, as far as I can see. It's not France, but it's pretty poor. But it just brings a discipline to the business and focus. And if I had that, I'd love to try to, I'd spent 20 years building a business. Could it have done it in 10? I think I actually could have.
I was going to say, was there any decisions that you'd wish you'd made sort of faster?
No, I don't. Another thing I don't regret, and I don't look back, and you can't. I know I should have spent more time training people, key people, but I brought in people because I was not good at managing people, so I brought in people that are 50,000 times better than me at doing it. But I don't have any regrets. The lease I signed on the first building was a catastrophe for
the 25-year one. Yeah,
she's upper only rent. I mean, how I allowed myself sign. I don't look at documents. I signed everything. I never looked at the things, the loans. the house, all that
You're
stuff.
just running at such a pace.
You have to be, because you have to make decisions, and you cannot wait around. And I prefer to make a decision and make the wrong decision, but sit around and make a decision. So that was, I don't know where I picked that up, but I was pretty good at that. Maybe impatience.
Yeah. So if we were to leave the next guest with a question.
Okay, well, if you qualify the next guest, is he?
That's an open-ended one as well. So
okay. I'd nearly say check your blood pressure. No, I actually would. I'd say, when was the last time you did a health test? And the reason I'll tell you this, well, you'd hear this. When's the last time you did a health test? I met 2 nurses recently, so they're qualified nurses. I don't know what the next stage, but they're really high achieving nurses in oncology. And they said to me, the thing they were doing didn't work. And I said, look, fine, it didn't work. Let's call it a day. And they're really great girls. And they said, do you ever need any help, talk to me. I said, I don't want to talk to you, because I said, if I need help, I've got cancer. And I said, I do my tests every year. And they said, don't do it every year. You have to do it every 6 months. Something has happened. And I won't tell you where they're from or the hospital, but it's a public hospital. Something has happened since COVID, that cancer is coming 50 times faster at us. And I don't know, it's male or female. They just said, get your bloods done every 6 months. So the question for the next person, male or female, is when was the last health test they did? Proper health test, because there's funny stuff going on out there. And I
love that angle, actually. And I'd be doing it. I've gone from every year to every 6 months now, and I have a blood pressure monitor at home, and just to be on the safe side. But because you never know, as you say, the older you get, things do sort of creep in, don't they?
Yeah, well, 75, you fall off a cliff. I'm 57. I keep fit, and I have the whoop. It's you cringe. That gives you all the, well, if I did have a pint glass. Actually, I had 2 pints.
You had 3.
And sorry, okay, I had 3. That's really hammering me, right? And I shouldn't have had them, right? But I had a 33% recovery on my whoop, which is a disaster, and then I was up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
So it gives you all the poor sleep.
It gives you the stats.
The HRV through the floor.
HRV.
I know it all with the ground.
I haven't looked at the blood pressure because I don't want to look at it. And my blood pressure is good, but I just know that if it just makes you aware when you have a pint or a glass of wine.
So you check yourself obviously regularly by the sounds of it, and based on where you've come, the pace you've run at all your career, and exiting at a rate of knots too, you can all sort of you can have all the money in the world, but then you've got one problem when you have a health problem, and you need to keep that sort of thing in check, don't you?
Well, I'm a good few years older than you. What I've seen in the last few years, people passing away sick. I mean, and do I have all the money in the world? If I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't keep working as hard, because that's the problem is
a general phrase.
No, but but it doesn't matter how the way I'm built. It doesn't matter what I get.
Yeah,
I still want to work. But the health thing is just so important. And the Ozempic and the Mounjaro.
I know a few people on the Ozempic.
These are massive changes in health. And people have this hang up about them. But if you're overweight, or you're drinking too much, or you're smoking too much, the guys are telling me, and most people are open about it, you physically feel sick if you have another cigarette, which is probably the worst addiction. Other than drugs, it's the worst addiction I've ever seen. And then drink is catastrophe long term, because you can't see the damage inside. But from an energy perspective and from a focus, and generally, I'm lucky I get hangovers, and I'm not.
Number 2 or 3 pints, you have a hangover.
3. It's.
We won't talk about your tennis career anyway. So.
No, I'd love to, but people are sick of it, right? I'm back playing singles tennis, and I love
singles, not even doubles. So
I love doubles as well, but just singles is where it's at. Because you can kill a guy, and then you can look at him afterwards, have a pint with him, and I just stop grinning. And you lose as well, and I don't like losing. But I love sport. I do love sport. And I play a lot of golf because the kids play golf. And that's as competitive. People who don't like golf are probably crap at golf.
Okay, so tell me this, David. That's great. And everybody should, I think, just to keep the health in check. And also, I think it's a great outlet, isn't it, from the world and everything else.
Huge distraction.
Yeah. And so... What's next? So you're involved in BioVest, right? So you're supporting.
So I'm an investor. I'm an investor, and Hillard
Yeah.
and Warren run that business, and we have 6 family offices that back us, and we've focused for some reason. We've got into Germany with pasta and another drinks business called Munster, not alcohol. It's dairy based, and we have Nomadic up in Donegal. We have Nobo, an investment in Nobo and Offbeat, and they're all doing very well. And I also am helping my 20-year-old set up a food business, which has taken a lot of time because this has
That's close to home now, isn't it? Working with your
Yeah,
family.
it is. And I was always anti that. But the difference now, I believe, is I used to think they had to be like me. Now I'm absolutely
polar
certain
opposite.
they don't have to be like me at all, right? But he's always wanted to go out on his own. And it's fun, but it's going to be his business. It's his business. Now we have to structure it right and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm looking at a private business at the moment. I looked at it yesterday. I'm looking at it this afternoon. I'm looking at buying a business myself, which is something I haven't done for a while. Because I just like to have an involvement business. And the mentoring thing is, like, I got so much out of FoodWorks yesterday from Board B. And Darina hadn't asked me for a couple of years, I don't think. But it's amazing what you get out of helping the other guys. Because everybody from Board B to EI to Cronin's to Dennis O'Brien was brilliant to me. All of these guys for years. Oh, we didn't get into the reiteration of Java Republic 2, which was a Ballycoolan. That was an 8 million. No, I was gone. The banks closed. They said, we're not paying the wages. You're gone. It was 8 million. The Celtic Tiger had died maybe 2 months before. We were building out. It was $500,000 over budget. And I had met him at an award ceremony in the first year of Java Republic. We won everything. And I asked him, could he give us some support? And he gave us all the Digicel buildings. And incredible relationship we had with him. And not that close, but when I got into trouble, he gave me great advice for a week. I mean, a game changer. And then Michael Cronin raised more money. And those guys, those 4 individuals were incredible. Back from the ashes, did you? Oh, we were gone. They stopped the wages for, I think, 3 weeks in a row. And I head to head with Bank of Ireland. And they treated us fair enough. They were all in at a big level. But they turned out, one guy, Derek McDermott, and he's still there. He was incredibly supportive, and we raised the money and we kicked off again. But it was a tough time.
So out of everything, David, with a view to being an entrepreneur, is resilience top of the pops there?
Well, I'm pushing my 20-year-old. I have 4 kids. I'm pushing my 20-year-old, pushing my 17-year-old, and my 12-year-old. Do they have resilience? I think the older guy does. The second guy is tough as nails. The third guy, I don't know. Resilience is one, but is resilience... Are you born with it? Can you become a resilient human being? I think you have to be born with an awful lot of it. And I think it's the way you're brought up. And we had I'd never had a bad day. I had a great life growing up in Lucan, 2 fantastic schools, great family, great encouragement. But there's people with resilience and not. And I don't think the people who go wallop or got into trouble back in 8, 9, 10, which never came back from it, I don't know whether they didn't have the resilience. It's just there's a lot of little things around it, but resilience is essential. And the best book I've ever written, and I will never write a book. The best book I ever read was James Dyson's book, and I don't think anybody have ever. Things, yeah. It's a horrific book. He lost 20 houses on his wife and his family, and the resilience that man had. And I love his products, and I don't hoover. Right? I don't have a chance to hoover, but what a story. So there's a case. In my case, resilience. Yeah, it had to be there, but what part of it? I'll tell you what's shocking, and this is particularly the new guys. Is luck plays a massive amount of work. Luck is 70% of my story. Luck was coming second in the Bewley's interview, coming into an industry that had a massive margin and a growth scale like oil back in the 1840s. It is incredible the amount of luck I've had. Now, I am good with people.
But do you create your own luck, though?
You do, but you don't create it all. And I remember listening to a guy, the fellow who set up Sure Tank. I was doing a talk down in Tullamore, down in Clonmel, and I changed my story after listening to him. And I said, I have the same story, but the amount of luck, and you can work harder. And the Gary Player thing, the more I practice, the luckier I get on that kind of crap, probably. But resilience. But I would put luck before resilience, which is a scary thing if you're thinking of going out on your own. But the upside is you have the freedom. You find out a lot more about yourself. You find out a lot more about your friends, your families.
You do.
You can travel. You have a beautiful, passionate team that you work with. It's great. It is great. But it's not for everybody.
No. So potluck and timing, key elements there. Well, look, super to hear you share your story and all the insights that went with it. Continued success to you as you push forward with the many buckets that you're operating from.
Thank you.
And you're looking nicely relaxed for a man who's been up since 5 with 3 pints
Exhausted
on
is
board.
probably the best way to say it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I get great chat. Meeting you is good fun, and it's interesting to reflect on all the mistakes, and there is some success. I get embarrassed in that part of it, but there is a great story.
I always think that people learn so much more from failures than they do from wins.
Yeah.
You know, because you reassess it and you kind of go, I'm not doing that one again. But if we all won, sure, it'd be a totally different game, wouldn't it?
It'd be boring.
Life would be very boring, David. Listen, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
A quick word about our sponsors, Philip Lee LLP. Philip Lee has evolved from a specialist regulatory practice to become a leading commercial law firm. Their partners are sector specialists, leading talented teams of lawyers in a collaborative, nurturing environment. Philip Lee's solutions help clients build better businesses, a better society, and a better planet. Find out more at philiplee.ie. Philip Lee, leading the way in commercial law.